Hi, my name's Jack Soul, and today I'm super excited to be talking about the Kinotone Sparks. This has been one of my most anticipated pedals to arrive in the mail ever, and I'm going to get to that reasons why in this video. And first, we're just going to start off by chatting for a second about what it does, and then we're going to get to some sound demos. So if you want to skip ahead to the sound demos, go right ahead. So the Kinotone Sparks is, in my opinion, a Overdrive fuzz with all of the almost synth engine type abilities built in. And the reason why I think this is so clever is because I've had other pedals that kind of allow you to do this. For instance, the Enzo by Maris has a dry mode, which you can use the synth engine stuff from the Enzo, which is a guitar synth pedal, without the synth engine. So then you're just using kind of the things that people use to modify synths. So just in simple terms, you can use like an auto swell, or you can use envelope style things. And one of my favorite ways to use that pedal was in the dry mode. Why I ended up getting rid of that pedal is because I replaced it with the Boss SY200 because the tracking was better on the synth engines. So then I see, fast forward to now, or to a few months ago, then I see the Kinotone Sparks release. And it took me a minute to do a little bit more digging on what this pedal was, because I knew by the first demos that I saw that it could do some really tasty overdrive, but it could also get really like gated, spitty fuzz, almost like a synthy sound in the fuzz. But it wasn't until I found out that you can basically use all the synth modifiers that I liked about the Enzo on your overdrive, on your, essentially, when I was talking about the Enzo, it's like essentially using this pedal in dry mode. Now, that intrigued me enough to continue doing research to where I found out that this pedal has a synth engine built in. Now, I'm not super well versed in vintage synth, even history, and this pedal has an SID style chip. Now, to me, what that meant was, after doing a little bit of reading, is it's very vintage, classic game style sounds, but we'll get to it in a second. But it has some really nice usable, I can get pads out of it, I can get kind of punchier synth lead lines. You can switch between mono or polyphonic, and how you use all this is with a Midi controller. So you plug your Midi controller into this pedal and you can use it as a synth engine. Now, why is that cool and why is that important? Well, some of you already probably think that's wicked awesome, but here's why. If you're not seeing it yet, I think this is so cool. So if I'm gonna use my guitar pedals with a synth, like for instance the OP1, I've found the best results is kind of taking them off your board and kind of putting them on your desk and pairing them with the OP1, resetting all of the kind of making sure that the levels are right. And I'll just tell you, that completely takes the wind out of my sails, especially primarily as a guitar player. I don't want to peel my pedal board apart, especially because when I get a pedal in front of coming after a synth like the OP1, I quickly think, oh, that would sound really amazing if I had this with it, or if I could pair it with that. And what that entails is ripping another pedal off my board, or going to grab another pedal, getting another power supply, like an individual one or a daisy chain, and then wiring it up. And that just didn't intrigue me at all. But I love playing around with simple synth sounds with my pedal board, because it's such an extensive pedal board with lots of sound design opportunities. And sometimes I want more synth like signal heading into the pedals to get creative with, rather than a more punchy guitar sound with less sustain. So in the intro clip, I used the Sparks as an overdrive, almost like a Qtron style overdrive, and then I used the triangle wave on the Sparks with the Chase Bliss mood to kind of create that like spooky, almost Halloween synth line. And it was it was just a different track, but it was so inspiring that when I wanted to break out a synth part, I didn't have to change, much on my board. I didn't have to reroute anything or peel it off. All I had to do was plug my Midi controller into my Sparks, which I put at the beginning of my signal chain, and then the rest is just playing around. So ever since I got this pedal about a month ago, I've had my Midi controller plugged in to this pedal full time, and anytime I'm playing guitar and have a little idea with synth, it's right there. So that's why this pedal is so important to me. If you went to a show and you were a guitar and synth player, you could easily set up 2 amazing presets for overdrive and fuzz, and then you could hit the preset button for your synth sound and switch back and forth seamlessly. The sound comes right out of your amp or whatever you're going to. And there's so many use cases that makes me really excited for this pedal that I really had a hard time making this video, because there's so many things that I kept discovering and kept getting excited about. So ultimately, if you're into classic cars, here's a quick analogy, and then we're going to get into playing. If you have a classic car, which I consider even modern day pedal boards to kind of be a vintage idea. Like, pedals now are still being routed through 1/4 inch and plugged in, it's very similar to how they used to be. Even Midi is a very old technology that's really fun to use now. But when you have a vintage car, I think some of the most interesting upgrades you can do is to make it mechanically work like a newer car. So maybe change the brakes to disc brakes, or put a more modern motor in it, or even put more modern stereo equipment in. But here's the catch. It needs to look right on your vintage car. And I think everything about the Sparks is really innovative while still looking and playing the part of a effect pedal that makes sense in this day and age. Because this pedal goes on your board, but it transforms its ability into something that it couldn't do before. But since adding this, it's kind of like dropping a new motor into a vintage car, because it allows me to put my synth right through my pedal board seamlessly at any time, without rerouting anything, and without really changing the output levels or the line to instrument level and all that stuff, which takes the wind out of my sails. Just makes playing synth with your pedal board an absolute blast. So as promised, let's get to the sound demos, and we'll walk through some of my favorite sounds that I've been using so far with the Kinotone Sparks. Alright, let's talk signal chain really quick. and then we'll get into it. So I'm going from my Fender Telecaster into my pedal board, which starts with the Kinotone Sparks. So I'm actually starting with it in mono, and then it goes to the Kernum, and then to the Boss SY200, and then the rest of the board is stereo, and then it goes out to actually 2 Joyo American Sounds. Of course they're a mono pedal, but I have 2 of them, so I'm keeping it stereo, into my Zoom R4 multi-track recorder. So I'm really excited about this setup. It's been sounding really good. So we're going to start with the overdrive and fuzz part of the Sparks, and this is not typical to kind of hone in. Some of the titles and names are stuff that I, as a guitar player, I'm not as used to, but maybe synth players are more used to. But let's just dive in, and I'll tell you what sound I'm most excited about. So here's my clean tone, and here's the Sparks. So usually how I start is by making sure that I don't blend any of the clean signal in. I don't usually like the sound of that in any pedal, so it's all Sparks that we're hearing. And then if we press this button here called the layer button, it lets us get into the menu of the white titles. So if we press this, the buttons or the lights go turquoise, and that means this knob right here is adjusting for levels. So that's usually where I start, and I like where it's at. And then I usually just hit the layer button again, and we're back to the regular controls. So this control right here is controlling the type of clipping, the type of overdrive sound. So as you can hear, we're actually at the very least sound. So this is and the gain is about noon. So this is least gain that you can achieve setting with the knob here, and then about noon here. So this pedal honestly is becoming one of my favorites just for tones across the board. It reminds me a lot of the Kernum, actually, with having a mood knob to be able to go side to side. And the difference in why I like having both, the Kernum's right down here, the reason why I like having both is because the Sparks gets way more experimental, whereas the Kernum, overdrive wise and getting towards distortion and fuzz, is very it tackles a lot of the classic sounds. So I think they're a really good team, and they stack really well. So here's a tone from the Kernum, and then adding that tone we had before with the Sparks. So stacks well, is super fun, has a variety of sounds. I hope if you're seeing what I'm seeing in it already. But let's surf around a little bit and hone in a bit of a different sound. So I'm going to bring the gain back down, and then we're going to start twisting this knob up. Let's bring it up a little bit in the level. So yeah, it's got a little bit of that more tone, or pedals that have wattage drains on them. So I like to get this sound and then turn the gain way down. So yeah, it has that, you know, on its own, not much, but I really like pairing that that harmonic sound, the harmonic richness with the kernum. So here's the kernum without that sound. And then here's just the spark. So not too much together, but here's kernum, and then here's it with the spark. Let's make it a little darker. Turn up the resonance so it just wants to go forever. Almost a wah placed all the way up to the treble side sound. So again, this isn't anywhere near a comprehensive review of everything this pedal can do. This is just how I've been using it and having fun with it after the first month or so. But let's get crazy with the clipping option here. Let's go 3/4 of the way. And as soon as I turn that gain knob, it just goes crazy. So this is all sparks. Added a bit of reverb on there. So there is no end to the amount of fun and really tweakability of what you can do with your guitar sound and transforming and adding. And so it goes all the way from a overdrive that I could take to a blues jam to a crazy kind of like Arctic Monkeys kind of overdrive, distortion, fuzz, wall of sound. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition to talking about the more synth side, and then quickly at the end we're going to talk about how you can kind of use it together. Okay, so we're back taking a look at the synth side of things. Now, first of all, what I'm going to recommend is this is what it sounds like after we've been playing with the overdrive. A little wild. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the layers button, and that puts us back to original settings. So I'm going to press the layers button again, bring up the level. Then bring up the gain. Okay, so it's a little quiet, but let's get into it. So to get to the synth engine, you just hold this for even a couple of seconds or a second, and then you press this button right here. So boom, boom. And you can kind of tell it goes from that turquoise color, but you can kind of tell it has a pink hue to it. And that means we're in the synth engine mode. So this over here is going to be turning us from sine wave, which we're at right now, to triangle. So we're going to hang out there for a little bit, and so pressing this gets us back to, so I was adjusting the cutoff there. Okay, so getting us back to the synth engine, and this is a bit crusher, or not a bit crusher rather, but a sample rate, so it goes to, it kind of does the same thing, but I like it right there. So this this pedal has, for me, the perfect synth sound. It kind of has a vintage Casio sound. You can get a lot of more modern sounds out of it, but we're gonna hang out here. And just talk about how interesting it is to have this sitting right here on your board that we can play around with all of our effects. I love using this warp mode setting that I have on the microcosm. Dial in something with the gen loss. So actually, with the gen loss, I'm pretty much only using the models here. But I'm going to turn up the flutter. So on the, as you can tell, already. I should have started the video with saying this, but I am not a keyboard player. I had some basic piano lessons that I've completely forgotten about over the years, but really what I do is I'll either, after I'm done a song, I'll do some melody stuff or add a few things. And the thing about already having played an instrument, when you switch to another one, you can hear what you want. Like, I can hear a sound that I think would go really well, and then if I spend some time on the keyboard, I can find it. But I'm just not good with the theory and, you know, all the chord shapes and whatever. But I find that I have, since I'm coming from guitar, I really enjoy just either following the melody or spending some time adding a little line. Or the second thing that I like to do, like I did in the intro track, is kind of use it to kind of create a little bit more soundscape sound. So and just as a side note, I actually have the mood. I have the clock on the mood set on smooth. And the reason why is because, first of all, I think it sounds really cool. Just to drop that sample rate. But the other reason why is because when you use it in tape mode, there's the modify knob jumps octaves, which I think is the most important part of having the clock stepped. So I think that's 2 octaves. Original key. Sorry, I'll do it without the reverb. That's 2 octaves. Original. Down 1. And that just creates an absolutely beautiful soundscape. And so again, this video isn't exactly to, you know, show you exactly all the different synth sounds, but I want to shed light on how awesome it is that the Sparks allows this even to take place. So again, how I have it hooked up, and sorry, it's this far in the video, but it comes MIDI out of the MIDI keyboard into my MIDI box here from Disaster Area. I have that because I just on here because I didn't have I mounted it right to the board because I'm going to be using this a lot, but I have that because I didn't have a MIDI cord that went MIDI to TRS 1/4 inch. But if I did, you could absolutely go right from your MIDI controller right to the Sparks. But I use MIDI with some other stuff on the board, so it was handy to just put that on there. But that's how it's hooked up. It's really simple. The other last thing that I think it was an interesting discovery was so I have the Boss SY200, which is made for guitar to sound like synth. And I was curious to see how it was going to react with the sparks. So here is the sparks. Here's the tone with the sparks. And then here's it going through the Boss SY200. So that's the 1981 synth brass detune. And then here's an organ. Dirty organ. And I'm sure you'd be like, the fact to me, like, I don't know how these pedals work from an internal perspective, but the fact that the Boss SY200 is tracking with the sparks is just really awesome. And the fact that the pedals can work that well together, because if we change around the, let's get to, and if we change the wave form, it's going to change the way the Boss SY200 sounds with it. But ultimately, that they play well together is amazing, and kudos on these two companies for being able to do something like that. I wasn't sure what the Boss SY200 was going to, if it was going to process and track with a different type of signal than a guitar signal. That's Microcosm, LVX, and Mercury X, and we can send it through even, let's do the Lossy. Sound's getting big, it's clipping a little bit. So at the moment, and you have not seen the last of Sparks in my videos on my YouTube channel, but at the moment, again, I couldn't be happier with how it's transformed the ability of my pedal board and allowed for this type of creative experience to take place. And I am going to obviously keep going with experimentation, and I'll let you know as I continue to evolve how I use it. I'll keep you guys updated, and it's actually about time that I do another full pedal board rundown, so you'll see lots of Sparks, I'm sure, in that video as well. So again, thank you so much for watching. Please comment any questions or ideas that you have for the Sparks. Get a conversation going and see what other people are feeling about it, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Alright, catch you later.